Welcome back to the Fantasy Shelf. Do you ever find yourself lost in a book, completely absorbed in its world and characters? That's exactly how I felt when I read Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. I had been looking for some must-read high fantasy titles and saw this book recommended by many readers. I was skeptical about reading it when I saw the blurb, but I am glad I let the hype around this book convince me to read it. In this video, I'm doing an in-depth book review of Throne of Glass. Let's begin. It has been a decade since magic was banned, the fairies disappeared, and magic wielders burned to death in Aurelia. Selena Sardothien, the most feared assassin in the world, has been recruited by the Crown Prince Dorian to represent him in a tournament to select the king's champion. If she wins, she can earn her freedom after serving 4 years as the king's personal assassin. The very king who has slaughtered many families in his quest to conquer the land. Failure means certain death, as she will be sent back as a slave to the salt mines of Endovia. But there is an evil set loose in the glass castle at Rifthold, and the competitors are dying one by one in a horrific way. And what's more, Selena is visited by a long-dead Fey queen who gives her a mission to win the tournament at any cost and to destroy the evil lurking in the castle. Can Selena find the killer before she herself ends up dead? And why is the first queen of Adarlan reaching beyond the afterlife intent on Selena winning the tournament? The plot is simple with a clear structure. The main character is participating in a tournament that should be fairly easy for her to win, given she is the deadliest assassin in Aurelia. But the storyline gets more compelling with the arrival of a foreign rebel princess, hidden passageways, a little bit of Fey lore, and gruesome murders by supernatural elements. The pacing is balanced. I wasn't bored at any point, nor overwhelmed with the information being provided. I like the descriptive language used in the narration because it skillfully paints a clear picture of what the author wants us to visualize. The dialogues are witty, and the internal monologues provide clarity to the nature and motivations of the characters. There is not much suspense since the story is pretty straightforward. I only sensed tension when Selena went exploring an unknown passageway and during the final task. The story is told from Selena's point of view. We do get regular short perspectives from the other characters, which is refreshing, making it easy for the reader to connect to them better. There is a slight dash of romance in the story, not overly done. It did not impact the main story in any way. Keol seems a better match for Selena, but he does not give me endgame vibes. Dorian does, but I would rather have a friendship here than a romance. As of now, I am not invested in the romance and I don't care about who she might end up with. At one point, the banter between the three did remind me of the Harry Potter trio, but this moment ended quickly because that friendship remains untouched and unbeaten, while this has the potential to turn into a messy love triangle in the future. The author brings to light the horrors faced by people of a conquered nation. The story explores the cost and corrupting nature of power that leads an ambitious king to destroy lives and families to claim dominion over the land. There is also an underlying theme of self-preservation, with the main character demonstrating immense resilience and determination, with the sole aim to survive and take control of her destiny under any circumstances. There are many common fantasy tropes in the story, like the Chosen One trope, with a strong female lead having a painful past, but with an exceptional destiny ahead of her. And as we know very little about her past, there is a possibility we are moving towards a lost heir arc in the future. We also have a similar concept to that of the hero's journey, where Selena travels from the slave mines of Endovia to face trials that would decide her fate, being mentored by Captain Keol and making some strong allies along the way. The story is set in the kingdom of Adarlan, in a time period that resembles mid-19th century. The author has done a great job breathing life into this fantasy world. There are pieces of historical lore being planted throughout the story, giving us glimpses of a forgotten era of magic, demons, and ancient legendary battles. The places Selena visits are described so vividly that we feel we are standing right there along with Selena as she moves from the accursed mines of Endovia through the mystical Brannan's forest to the giant glass castle at Rifthold. The main religion of the land uses a 8-point star as its symbol and worships the goddess and the gods. We do get references to a couple of gods like Loomis, the god of love, whose birth banished chaos from the land, and Diana, the goddess of the hunt. Using some flimsy excuse about these gods being offended by the use of magic, the king outlawed magic across Aurelia. Now, since magic has been banned, there is very little reference to it. Instead, we are introduced to an ancient civilization or religion that uses swirling symbols called word marks that have a power of their own. These can be used to open portals to other worlds, summon otherworldly beings, as well as heal people. There is also a political power struggle brewing between Lord Barrington and the Crown Prince, while Princess Nehemia, closely associated with the rebels, has her own agenda for visiting Adderland. We have a rebellion at play, but in the background, and we never get to see it. If this was a standalone novel, I would have had so many questions about the geography, lore, and the magic system. The fantasy setting here is apt for this book alone. This story gives the feeling that as the series progresses, this world will become even more intricate, more complex, and all my questions will be answered in time. It's been a while since I read a series with a couple of strong women in the lead, and this book delivered on that aspect. All the main characters are very enjoyable and easy to relate to. They have distinctive personality traits, and there wasn't any occasion where I felt their roles or dialogues overlapped. I do have to say there is a lack of morally grey characters who make questionable choices. This would have made the story more intriguing and given the opportunity for excellent character growth. In this story, all the main leads are simply good people, likable, including the ruthless assassin. So far, the two main men in the story don't get to do much than provide some lighter moments. This did not bother me much as the focus is on Selena. Now, a great story needs a great villain. However, here we only have a couple of predictable baddies like Mean Girl Lady Caltaine and the monstrous Kane. We do not get a clear backstory to either of them. Since the true villains of the story who were pulling the strings all along have a bigger role to play in the future, I will comment on them once we get to see more of their characters. In this section, I will be rambling a little about my likes and dislikes with examples. This is a spoiler section, so those who do not want spoilers, please move on to the next part. The timestamps are in the description. Before you leave, a reminder to hit subscribe. See you in a bit. The passage. The first was the secret passage right there in Selena's chambers. This was very convenient. What are the odds of this happening? The minute she notes that there is something off with the structure of the room, it became very obvious that there was a hidden door somewhere. At first, I thought this was Chaol's clever plan to have her watched from a secret chamber, as the royals were living in the same palace and all. This wasn't the case though. The murders. The entire part where Selena thinks it is Nehemia attacking the champions could have been totally avoided. The logic she used to convince herself of this point seemed very weak. Since she's supposed to be the greatest assassin of the land, I expected her to have a better sense of judgment. I still managed to overlook this considering her age, and I felt maybe her judgment is clouded because of the past betrayal she keeps referring to. Maybe this was the author's plan to subvert reader expectations, but it failed miserably for me. Thankfully, this was short and did not drag along annoyingly before the truth came out. Coming to Kane, There was a moment where she sees Cain holding his throat, choking on his words. He was staring at something beyond her that only he could see. I would have liked an explanation at the end rather than just a passing mention of him being controlled. When Cain sees Selena alive after her encounter with the Ridderak, I was expecting some sort of reaction from him, at least shock, but he hardly looked her way. Once she found out about Cain, Selena should have warned someone about Cain. At this point in the story, she is close to many people and they could have been in danger. She could have hidden the details about the secret tunnel and done something to implicate Cain, maybe indirectly. She is a world-class assassin. Deception and lies should be easy for her, shouldn't it? Once the creature was dead, there was no mention of how the murders had stopped. Keol was investigating it and he had recruited Selena. There was no discussion regarding it at all, as if people just forgot and went about their business. I would have liked the champion's task to be described in detail, as it would have given us more insight into Selena's skills and shown us why she is called the greatest of them all. This would have been a great opportunity for more action-oriented sequences. I also expected some kind of epic showdown between the human version of Cain and Selena in the final task, where she could smack that smirk from his face and humble him. It never happened. I did wonder what the spectators were thinking watching her having her visions. It seemed like a long while. All in all, the story is of an assassin who does no assassinating, at least in this book. I hope this will be addressed later in the series. Selena Sardotian. On the surface, Selena is described as a very capable and ruthless assassin with a traumatic and mysterious past. However, she is an assassin by profession only because she was forced into the trade to survive. This explains why she displays more protective instincts than killer vibes. Her trauma is eating her alive, but she manages to push it down, deep down. This is a real unhealthy coping strategy that I have seen people in my world use, making Selena a very lifelike character. Though she may be deadly in combat, she is still a girl of 18 who is immature and insolent mostly, who likes the finer things in life. Her childlike enthusiasm and joy after visiting the Royal Library made her very relatable to me. Moreover, her dreams to start over somewhere far in a quiet, beautiful place in solitude sounds exactly like something I dream of. A special call out to the intelligent, compassionate, and graceful Princess Nehemia, a child of a conquered nation, who is said to be in close alliance with the rebel forces. The woman has a keen understanding of court politics, is not afraid to stand her ground confronting injustice head on. She comes across as a far more mature and sensible person than Selena. Her presence commands respect and she serves as a symbol of hope and empowerment for her people. The dream, which wasn't a dream, where Selena enters the tomb marks the turning point in the story. The room itself is unnatural and mystical, with stars carved onto the floor and trees on the ceiling. And then Elena, the first queen of Adarlan, daughter of the fake king Brannon, appears in front of Selena. I loved this part as the mythology instantly got deeper. We now know there is so much more at stake than just Selena's freedom. Elena's presence hints at a deeper connection between the two women and provides the historical context in the lore that was needed to add depth to Selena's character. All her horrific experiences and struggles in her young life was to hone her skills and ensure her survival. This is not an intense, action-packed or suspenseful sequence, but to me, the plot thickened, raising more questions about Selena's identity. Throne of Glass took me close to 18 hours to read. Even with its flaws, it is still a fascinating read with enjoyable characters and a compelling plot. I'm going to rate this book as good with a score of 7.5 out of 10. Though it has a share of dark moments, I certainly wouldn't call it a grim tale. To me, it seemed more like a badass fairy tale for young adults done right. Regardless of age, if you're a fan of high fantasy worlds with an interesting lore and strong female characters, then you must give Throne of Glass a try. It is not meant for readers who like darker, grittier tones with nuanced themes and less common fantasy tropes. If you like Throne of Glass, you may also want to check out these titles: Graceling by Kristen Cashore, and Ember in the Ashes by Saba Tahir, Grave Mercy by Robin Lafevers. I hope you have enjoyed my review of Throne of Glass. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Do subscribe to my channel for more such content. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.